independent podcast covering New York's National League Baseball team. It is not affiliated in any way with Major League Baseball or the New York Mets.
Now it's time for some New York Mets baseball talk. Here's Gary Mack bringing you the latest news and analysis from Mets Nation and the world of baseball on another edition of Mets Musings.
And hello and welcome to another edition of Mets Musings. It's the Dark Knight Returns edition. As yes, Matt Harvey pitched today, and it was a happy Harvey day as the Mets won 6-3. Harvey went 6 innings, gave up 4 hits, 9 strikeouts, and 0 runs. So a big start to the 2005 season as the Metsies go 2-1 to kick it off. And hi, there I am, and hello everybody. Welcome to another edition of Mets Musings. And we got a great show for you tonight, and I got a terrific guest coming on in just a few. But let's kick it off and say that we've been talking about how many games the Mets would win. Well, I got a voicemail this week, and I get a pick on games and a Masters pick, which is something out of the ordinary. So let's play that right now from our friend Jerry in Long Island.
Oh, this is Jerry from Long Island. Picking the Mets to win 88 games, and for Jordan Spieth to win the Masters. Thank you.
All right, Jerry, thanks for checking in. Jerry's picking 88 wins, I should say, for the Mets, and Jordan Spieth to win the Masters. So look at that. You get 2 things in one show. That's pretty good. He's a holdover from my old Talking Golf with Gary show that I no longer do, but so he still got that golf bug in him and wants to get the picks in every so often, especially for these major open time. So be ready for that. Let's see, a little bit of business. If you are not getting the feed, we just changed feed, so you may have to go and resubscribe through iTunes. It's in the process, and don't know how all of that stuff works, so got to talk to some people, but a resubscription could take place, or if you want, you can just go to MetsMusings.com and listen to the show. Let's see. All right, Mets news. Not a lot. 2-1 start, and they're going to come home Monday. They're going for 3 games to Atlanta now. Coming home Monday for opening day, and they're going to unveil their new high-definition video board in center field, which is topped off with a sign reading, "Let's go Mets." The team debuted it the other day, and they just showed it to the press and everything, but it's going to be put into action and showed what you can do on Monday, the home opener. And in that home opener, the Mets will be taking on the Philadelphia Phillies, and that's right where will be coming in. And his name is Rich Baxter, and he's no stranger to this show. Rich and I host a show every Sunday night called MLB This Week, and check that out. We cover all of Major League Baseball, but Rich also co-hosts with his buddy Jim a show called Fightin' Phillies, and they cover all about the Philadelphia Phillies. So, Rich, welcome to Mets Musings.
Thank you very much, Gary. Great to be here.
And as usual, it's great to have you. And Rich, as I said, the Phillies are coming into New York for the first time this year, and they didn't get a lot of love this winter from the baseball writers and the critics and whatever. So what is the feeling in the Philly camp about what people are saying, and what do you think of the team so far?
Well, the Phillies are now 1-1. They're playing their 3rd game as we're speaking during the show tonight. They started the season off against the Boston Red Sox, who are picked to be one of the better teams in the American League so far, and they've shown that, especially tonight in Game 3. They have a 6-0 lead. Right now, actually, they have the bases loaded against the Phillies, and despite the Phillies hanging tough for a few innings, it's that explosive Boston Red Sox offense always lurking. And, the Phillies are not predicted to do well, as you said, Gary. A lot of people have them finishing dead last in the baseball league this year out of 30 teams even. So you can see that it's going to be quite an uphill battle for the Phillies all season long this year.
And I guess you consider the minor move what other teams did, such as the Padres, and what people had predicted that they would do over the winter. We thought that Utley might possibly be gone, and Cole Hamels, of course. Cole Hamels started opening day and was not Cole Hamels-like. So are the rumors still, do you think that Cole Hamels, let's put it this way, is he going to finish the year as a Philadelphia Philly?
I kind of think he will, Gary, especially with Cliff Lee. They had the two aces going into the season. Cliff Lee coming off an injury. He tried to heal his injury naturally, his elbow flexor tendon, also known as Tommy John surgery, needed for Cliff Lee, but he doesn't really want to do it. So his status, he's on a 60-day DL with the Phillies. He cannot throw. He's basically sidelined until he decides if he's going to go through with a surgery, or is he going to try to heal it naturally and come back later in the season possibly. So yeah, I think the Phillies will hang on to Cole Hamels now that Cliff Lee is going to be out of the picture for the majority of the season, if not the whole season. Team still needs an ace, and obviously Cole Hamels is their guy this year. A lot of the trade talk rumors have died down considerably, and we haven't heard anything on trade rumors since the season started. About the best we've heard from Hamels himself is he doesn't even want to think about any trades or leaving the team right now. He's just focusing on pitching for the Phillies.
And any condemnation of Ruben Amaro Jr.? I mean, I guess he's gotten enough over the last couple of years that it's hard to come up with more adjectives or whatever to call him, but how are the people feeling about the job that he did over the winter?
Well, a lot of people are upset in the fact that, the announcements were that the Phillies were going to rebuild this team. They've started on a rebuild, so to speak, but it hasn't been very evident this season. The Phillies added a couple of players, but they obviously moved Jimmy Rollins out to L.A., but no big moves like Ryan Howard leaving the team. The Phillies freeing up some capital to possibly bring in a player or two that might be better. So, yeah, a lot of the sentiment around Philadelphia is Ruben Amaro has still not gotten this job done, and the Phillies are still in a state of shambles. So a lot of people are upset with him. They feel that he's had his try at this team, making it better, but a lot of people would like to see him gone, that's for sure.
And I gotta believe that if it's a bad year for the Phillies, that he could be gone by the end of the year. But you don't know. Maybe the owners really like him, or maybe he's got pictures of them something illegal. Who knows?
Yeah, he seems to have a invisible shield around him when it comes to a lot of bad comments and things like that. But yeah, the ownership in Philadelphia does like him. I don't know how much more they could put up with some decisions that he's making lately. You'd have to be around the Philadelphia area to know more about that, but a lot of his decisions just don't add up. They don't make sense anymore, and it's just something that's not improving the Phillies, most of these decisions. So he's in a tough spot. Anytime your team isn't doing well, they want to blame someone. In the end of the day, it's usually the players, but blame does fall on the general manager at some time or another, and I think this is the time for poor Ruben Amaro to move on. So we'll have to see what the Phillies plan to do about that.
Any blame going to the owners at all? Because here in New York, they hate the Wilpons. And in fact, there has been a group that has put up a billboard in Port St. Lucie as well as in Flushing by Citi Field, and basically telling the Wilpons that they should sell. Is there any are the people rebelling yet? The fans rebelling against the Philly owners?
Well, the Phillies are owned by a consortium of owners. There's about 4 major owners that make up the ownership of the Phillies, and they all probably have about their own say with the way the team is run. But so far, there's not much focus on the ownership in neither fan base going after ownership yet, or any other type of comments about the ownership, other than they feel that the management should be changed. But it's funny because I just got an email the other day from Las Vegas. They say that the manager that is most likely to be fired first and the favorite out in Las Vegas is actually Ryan Sandberg, who is the manager of the Phillies. So a lot of axes chasing after Phillies management, but not yet the owners.
And that was going to be my next question, asking about Ryan Sandberg. But what do the fans feel about the job that Sandberg do? It's always tough when you have a legend or a well-loved player manage the team, because then you run the risk that if they get fired, it's awkward. It's just it's kind of an awkward thing. Even though I guess if you're gonna manage, you have to realize that you're hired to be fired eventually. I know the Mets went through it a little bit when they had Bud Harrelson here, a member of the Mets Hall of Fame and beloved shortstop. He got canned, and of course, Yogi Berra with the Yankees, and for years didn't partake of anything in Yankee Stadium. It was only the last, 10 years or so. So, what are the fans upset with Sandberg, or because to me, as an outsider, it seems that Amaro seems to be the whole target of the fans' abuse.
He is the whipping boy at this point. Ryan Sandberg has not really fell under that scrutiny, although I think you could possibly put him in by mid-season. A lot of fans are still on the fence with Sandberg. They still want to give him a chance. They feel that a lot of this has been caused by certain players that haven't done well, the aging of the team, things like that. But yeah, nobody's really gone on a fire Ryan Sandberg mantra yet in Philadelphia. But again, by mid-season, if they're in last place, 25 games out, something like that, I think that might change as well.
All right. Well, let's talk about the team itself. Let's start with the pitching staff and lay it out for us, Rich.
All right. Well, right now the Phillies going with a 4-man rotation to start off the season. The first couple weeks with off days and things like that, they can get away with it. Cole Hamels anchoring this starting squad. They've got Aaron Harang, which is a good addition. He pitched last night against the Red Sox really well. Not many runs did he give up. A hard-nosed pitcher. He is older. He's 37 right now, but he's still got it in him. He's sort of like a Bartolo Colon. He won't go away peacefully. The Phillies are going with a younger pitcher, his second year tonight, David Buchanan, and the Mets will probably see him, the way I figure it, the middle game or the last game of the series coming up with the Phillies and the Mets. Jerome Williams is due to be rejoining the starting rotation. He's been a good pickup for the Phillies, a player that's been around a number of years, a journeyman, I guess you would call him. But he's pitched well for the Phillies in the 1 year that he's been with them, and he's been a good economical pickup for them. Chad Billingsley, if you remember from LA Dodger fame, is also on the Phillies this year. He'll probably be joining the rotation at some point. He begins his AAA rehab on Friday, so only tomorrow, actually, as we're doing the podcast tonight here on April 9th. But fellas expect Billingsley to be into this rotation, so if Billingsley can pitch back to the way he used to with the Dodgers or anywhere close to it, Phillies could turn some wins this season.
And how's the bullpen looking for the Phillies? How does that set up this season?
The bullpen, they made some changes. They got rid of a few players. Antonio Bastardo is gone now. The Phillies going with a trusted 5 at this point, Justin DeFreitas, middle reliever. Jake Diekman, he's a middle reliever as well. Luis Garcia, he's new to the Phillies this year. A guy named Ken Giles, he's a late reliever. He can be a closer at times. He did get into trouble last night with the Red Sox, loaded the bases up, and the Phillies just happen to have Jonathan Papelbon still on the team. So he came in to get a 4-out save against his old teammates in the Red Sox organization. And that's the benefits of still having Jonathan Papelbon on this closers and relief roster.
And yet he's another guy that's expected to be gone before the season ends if somebody's looking for a closer around trading time.
Yeah, and I guess the Phillies don't want to just hand these players over to different teams, although they've done that over the years with certain trades, with Hunter Pence especially. Shane Victorino, to a certain extent, the Phillies, for some unknown reason, and this is one of Amaro's worst 2 deals, they got rid of 2 of the best players on the Phillies a couple years ago and just handed them to teams for basically next to nothing. So the Phillies probably want to avoid that. They could have probably dealt Jonathan Papelbon in the offseason. The price was not right for the Phillies, obviously. They were not giving him away for nothing, and they certainly weren't paying a large portion of his salary, as a lot of publications were leaning towards. One in particular, I remember reading about Ryan Howard, saying that the Phillies would pay up to half his remaining salary, which is around $65 million over the next couple seasons. And that's just false. I think the Phillies would rather have him on the team and pay him rather than pay somebody else to take him.
Well, there was a story going around about Ryan Howard that the Phillies would pay up to 90% of his salary, and there was a team from the Independent League, I think it was Yorktown or one of those teams, that was trying to raise the difference in the 5% there, whatever it would come out to be, $5 million or whatever it was, to try to buy him from the Phillies, and I don't think that was very successful at that move. Nor do I think that Ryan Howard would want to leave Major League Baseball to go play in an independent league, not because he's still getting his salary. So, well, he would anyway. So maybe it wouldn't matter to him if he got his full salary. And one note on Aaron Harang. He was here in New York a couple of years ago towards the tail end of the season and did a really nice job, and he did a really nice job last year with Atlanta, so I think that was a good pickup by the Phillies.
Yeah, it was amazing that that was a good pickup. Every now and again, Ruben Amaro does come through with a nice pickup. It hasn't been like he's done the world's worst to the Phillies over the years. I can tell you that certain times when the Phillies got Roy Halladay, they got Cliff Lee, they got Cole Hamels, and all on the same starting rotation. I mean, nobody was more happy than that with Ruben Amaro. A lot of fans were real happy. So I can't say it's all been bad with Ruben Amaro, but yeah, he's probably slid down that mountain quite fast since then.
Well, I think the main problem is he was. I don't know the guy, but I think he was probably too loyal to everybody, and he let the team get old. And I think that's the big argument that everybody has, that that he let everybody. Not that he let them get old; he didn't have any choice in that, but that he didn't deal them before that. But some of them are hard to deal. We mentioned Ryan Howard at first, and take us around the infield. Start with Ryan. How does he look? How did he look in spring training? How does he look so far? Does he look healthy? Because there were times the last, more so I think 2 years ago, where he looked like he could be.
Yeah, Howard's been sort of an enigma with the Phillies. He's been injured quite a bit in the last couple seasons. He's back to good health now, though. He's lost a lot of weight. He's lost about 18 pounds, maybe even 20. So a lot of Mets fans that may not have seen Ryan Howard in the preseason will be surprised. They're going to see a younger-looking Howard. But his bat has not come around yet for the Phillies. He's still batting under 200 in this early season. But we'll see. He's a warm weather player, and so far, as of right now in Philadelphia, it feels like the mid-30s as they're playing the Boston Red Sox. So Howard is definitely not a cold weather player. But I think
that April baseball.
Exactly. Yeah, he tends to heat up towards late May, typically. Chase Utley is still at second base. Of course, Chase Utley still holding down a lot of the Phillies' offense, doing a great job for them. Freddie Galvis, which a lot of people have seen him, especially Met fans have seen him before with the Phillies. He's now the Phillies shortstop. So far in this young early season, that could change. His batting average isn't always the best, so we'll have to see if the Phillies stay with him for the whole season. But over at third base is Cody Ash, and of course a lot of Met fans will probably recognize that name. He's been a pretty solid third baseman with mediocre numbers, nothing to write home about on him, but yeah, that's your infield, and of course Carlos Ruiz is doing the catching for the Phillies.
And a little bit of an upheaval in the infield with the departure of Jimmy Rollins, and the outfield too is practically a new outfield, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's a new look outfield. The only remaining player from last year so far is Ben Revere, who started the season out in left field. A lot of Met fans will remember Ben Revere from center field last year, and Ben Revere is back in center field tonight. But he did lose his center field spot to a player named Odubel Herrera, which the Phillies picked up from a Rule 5 draft pickup out of the Texas Rangers. Odubel was doing great with the Phillies in spring training. He won the job out in center field. He's got a sore foot, so right now he's day-to-day, but I expect he would be ready for the Mets series when they take on the Mets. He's added a lot of speed to the Phillies lineup. Guy is lightning fast, and combination with Ben Revere and him is a double speed combination for the Phillies that they sorely needed. Out in right field, Jeff Francoeur for the Phillies. He's sort of taken the place of Dominic Brown early on in the season. Dominic Brown is on a 15-day DL. His rehab started today, so I doubt the Mets will see Dominic Brown in the series, but Jeff Francoeur, a lot of people remember him from the Braves, and I believe he even played for the Mets.
Yes, he did. He had a decent year, and I'll tell you, he's a great guy in the clubhouse, and he's a terrific outfielder. I mean, is he? You know, I guess he's playing right field. Well, you said, yeah. He's got still can throw. Very good outfield. It's just that bat that he'll get you some timely hits, but boy, he can't keep it consistent ever since his rookie year. Though he did fairly decent from what I remember with the Mets. He had a pretty decent year, and they I think they traded him in before the deadline. Couldn't tell you what they got. It is, you know, I'm getting old. My mind don't remember as well as I used to. But yeah, he's another good ball player. Look, he's knocked around the last couple of years in the minors, and it's good to see him that he's getting another opportunity.
Yes, it is. I always thought the Phillies should have gone after Francoeur a few years earlier than they did. He's always hit the Phillies well, especially when he's with the Braves. But yeah, the Phillies finally have Francoeur. There was a question mark whether or not he would make the starting 25 when the team came up from Florida there, but due to injuries and other things, he did make this starting squad. So it's all worked out for him and the Phillies so far. He's had a mammoth home run last night against the Red Sox. It was a key part of their first victory of the year. So it'll be interesting to see how some of these old players come back and maybe haunt their old teams.
And where do they expect where do you think the offense and the power is going to come from on this team?
Well, that's a great question of the year. Guys like Francoeur could pitch in. Howard could get hot. The Phillies also have Darren Ruff. A lot of Met fans may remember him. Darren Ruff is sort of like a diamond in the rough. He's about 26, 27 years old. He's got a heck of a power bat, but the Phillies just so far have used him very sparingly in his career. It's almost like they're keeping him on a shelf, but he's known for his power. So if the Phillies can get these guys into the lineup and they can start hitting, that's where I think the Phillies are going to turn some wins, especially with Chase Utley from time to time. He has an explosive bat, so we'll have to see if it all comes together for these players.
I guess they're gonna have to try to manufacture runs. They're gonna have to use that speed that you talked about, and hope that those guys can get on, and then drive them in with Utley and Howard, because and as you say, though, Howard always a slow starter, doesn't like the cold, so hopefully it'll warm up. Not so much next week for Howard, but for the rest of us, I hope it warms up.
Yeah, really. It's been way too cold here in April so far.
Yeah, it certainly has, but that's, you know, Northeast baseball in April. It could be the Mets played in Washington. It was 73 degrees on Monday, and then they played again last night, and it was in the barely made the 40s. So you know, it's crazy weather, and you don't know what's going to happen. But we're looking forward to the Phillies coming in. It's always a fun time, and you had something else we were chatting about before the game about the schedule with the Phillies and the Mets.
Yes, I did. I did a little research before we did the show tonight, Gary. And the Phillies and the Mets will play one another for 3 home and home series all season long. So we have 18 games against the two teams. And if it's a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday in New York, you probably look at your schedule and see that the Mets and the Phillies are going to be playing, because 3 of those series in New York, all 3 of them actually, are on a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday this year. Very unique that that's happened. Of course, the home opener, as you said, always a great day for the home team fans. And they'll actually play also in New York on Memorial Day at 1:10 p.m. So it's going to be a great holiday game to catch as well.
Yes, and that is pretty incredible. And it is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right through the schedule.
Yeah, the Phillies and the Mets play in Philadelphia three times. It's mixed up. There's a weekend series in May, the 8th, 9th, and 10th. I'm sure a lot of New York fans will want to come down to Citizens Bank Park to see their Mets, who, Gary, I'm very happy for you. I think the Mets are going to do well this year.
Well, we're keeping our fingers crossed, Rich. It hasn't started off well with the. I mean, win-wise, it has, but we lost 2 key members of the bullpen already. Josh Edgin is gone for the season, and Henry Mejia just went on a 15-day disabled list. But I think there's some depth there, and hopefully they'll be able to weather that storm. And we're not so concerned about the starting rotation, even though we lost Zach Wheeler. But we have some young guys on the farm, and luckily enough, we had Dylan G here, who they were looking to trade because he was an extra piece, and Zach Wheeler goes down, and Dylan G can move right into to his spot, so you don't really miss a beat. And then, of course, there's the young Rafael Montero, who had some ups and downs last year, pitched last night, pitched awesome last night. Looks like a completely different pitcher, and looks like he did in the minor leagues. And speaking of the minors, you were mentioning that the Phillies have that young shortstop, and if he's not able to make it, do they have any studs waiting to come up from the minor leagues?
Well, there's always the unknown coming out of the minor leagues, but the short answer is not really. They might have a starting pitcher or 2 that they could bring up out of the minors if needed, but to my knowledge, not too many game-ready minor leaguers, sans maybe a Michael Franco is his name. He might be ready to come up at some point during the year should Cody Ashley start to falter at third base. But the Phillies minor leagues were depleted over the years with Ruben Amaro, as he traded away a lot of the Phillies' top minor leaguers are all over the American League now. They're everywhere else but the Phillies. So, yeah, it was almost like Amaro mortgaged the future, and now the Phillies are paying for it. They don't have that deep depth minor league to draw from.
And that seems to be the whole trend in baseball now, is to build from within. And I guess the owners are getting a little cheaper, or they're finding that free agency really isn't the way to build a ball club anymore, that you really have to have that certain talent in place, and then fill in some of the holes with free agency.
Yeah, that's what the Phillies are going to have to do now for the short time that they're rebuilding. I'm looking ahead at the starting lineups for the Mets and the Phillies series, Gary. It looks like you guys will have Harang against DeGrom in the first series. David Buchanan against Matt Harvey, so the Phillies will go up against your Dark Knight, as you called him, there in this series. And also Jerome Williams scheduled against Jonathan Neese early on here, as we're looking at the potential starters for this series. It looks like a good one.
And that's interesting because that would mean then that the Mets are not using a 5th starter yet. Of course, that would be Dylan G, and unless he's throwing against the Braves this weekend, which is a possibility.
Yeah, so for Met fans that may not know, the Phillies playing the Washington Nationals a whole 7 times in the first 2.5 weeks of the season. So, the Phillies have their work cut out for them just in that matchup alone. So there you go. It might be a long season.
I tell you what, though, and I've been saying this about the Mets. The Mets have Washington a couple of times as well, and this is the time to get them. Now, they have 3 injuries, though. By the time you guys see him, and by the time the Mets see him again, Jason Worth will probably be back. But other than the pitching staff, they're missing Denard Span. He's out. He'll be out a while yet. And Rendon is out. So this was really, actually, as much as everybody dreaded, the Mets fans dreaded starting the season against Washington. When I found out about the injuries, I thought this is probably a good time to play them because they are a little bit down. And they're not hitting that well. And Desmond has 3 errors already at shortstop. So... and a lot of confusion in the outfield. So maybe the Phillies may be better off playing them now. And look, I'm ecstatic that the Mets got out of there with two wins, won the series, and that's always the best thing to do. And I couldn't be happier, and kind of glad that those 3 games are off now. There's only 16 left with the Nationals, and go 500 from here and against the Nationals, and it's a much better year. Last year, the Mets were 4-15 against them, and that's really what hurt them because they beat everybody else in the division.
Yeah, that's something. I didn't realize the Mets had that bad of a record against the Nats.
They probably would have gotten to 500. A couple more wins.
Sure.
Had a big problem with them last year. So this year we got them early a little bit, and like I said, now's the same thing with the Phillies. Now's the time to try to get them while Worth and Rendon and Span is out, because I have to say they just look very confused. They had a guy playing left field today that it was only like the 3rd or 4th time he's played the outfield. Michael Taylor looks like a good player out in center field, but he's young, and actually I believe he was supposed to start at AAA this year, but due to the injuries they had to bring him up, and looks a little lost, and especially out in the field. And so now's the time to get them.
Yeah, look on the bright side then. Yep.
Well, Rich, this has been a great interview, and I'm glad that you came on the show. And it's that time when you can plug whatever you'd like to plug.
Well, I want to invite your listeners to listen to a great lineup of independent baseball talk shows over at baseballtalkradio.com. Great lineup there, including Gary's own MetsMusings. You can listen to my Phillies talk there. Gary also does his Brooklyn Cyclones show there, so you can find that. There's Cubs podcast, Orioles, just about most of the teams there, even some international baseball talk. So you can find our shows there. You can find me at fightinphillies.com for the blog portion, and it's also where you'll find the podcast called Phillies Talk Podcast, which I do with my co-host Jim Mulry.
And go check it out. I've been on a show with Jimmy and Rich, and Jimmy's been on this show with us, Rich. So it's a great show and always enjoyment. So thanks again, Rich, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Gary, and best of luck in the 2015 season with your Mets.
And the same to the Phillies. And we'll be back right after this.